calling? Who's
Yeah, this is Ahmed.
yes? Hang on a second, right? No. You'll never have a table called book entity. It'll be book. Yeah, I see what you mean, right? And that was the next section that I was going to deal with. It it may not be required because of when you consider it's categorized according to the Dewey Decimal System, right? So each department will have a section of the library. For example, in the humanities, which is an area of study in which you have the philosophy department and the psychology department, both will share in the Dewey Decimal System. I'm looking at the diagram here now. The areas of the library that are marked off with 100, okay? So if you want a book on philosophy, you know you're going to 500, okay? Or 100, right? Now, because philosophy and psychology are kind of overlapping, you will need a way of identifying the different areas, okay? And it'll be 100.01, 100.2, 100. Or it'd be 100.00, 100.01, 100.02, and going up 100.12. So you have 99 options within that to break up philosophy into ancient Greek philosophy, classical philosophers, modern philosophers, and whichever way you want to divide up. But all of those will be owned by the philosophy department. Okay, so any book that's in that section is by inference and has been put there by the department. Do you get my? So in that case, there's no need for a department ID to be attached to book when you have a very, very necessary Dewey Decimal representation. Do you follow my drift? Now, the reason why this particular case study is so long, right, is that I was in that whole paragraph, I'm explaining how the Dewey Decimal System works, okay, which is very important because it's applied in every library, no matter where you are, and it's in universities. They've taken it one step further and kind of mapped it onto disciplines. So, does anybody have a question? Somebody had a question a while ago. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you need an author's table, don't you? Because you don't know how many authors a book will have. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. If you're dealing with novels, right? Yeah, most novels just have one author. But this is, and many academic texts have one author. But I can think of several in informatics, right, that have at least between 2 and 4 authors, right? Because creating a textbook is a demanding activity, and a lot of them will have more than one authors. Yeah. So we need an author's table and an author ID, and that will then appear as a foreign key. Sorry, as a foreign key, and you could have more than 2 author IDs in actual fact. So that's a problem. So it's the book ID will appear in the author table as a foreign key. Okay.
Oh, so you're saying
Or
they
you
want
might have in the relation. Let's do this logically, right? One book can have many authors, correct? One author authors many books, correct? What do we have? No. We have a many-to-many relationship.
We have many to many, yes.
Yeah. So what do we do with many-to-many?
We need to create a separate entity to.
Yeah, it's called an associative entity. Okay. So this associative entity will have a primary key or keys, composite primary key, consisting of what? Excellent. Bang on. And you know, the book ID and the author ID, but will not the author ID say you need 2 author IDs, right, for 2 authors? Correct? So, but we can, and there will be repeating groups, but I'm just thinking, you know, I'm imagining here, if those of you who can see my face in this thing, right? You need to imagine the relationship and how things are going to work out in the table, where the repeating groups are going to be, and can we do something about repeating groups? And this is an unusual problem. So we take the hit, we decide, okay, you know, we have the book table, we have the authors table, everything is tickety-boo. We have multiple authors. We'll just take the hit with the repeating groups in the book author details table, okay? Because there is the author details, right? And think of this, when you're doing a SQL search, right? Who authored this book? So you put in a SQL statement, select books with title, okay? And you need a join to the author details table. And you have the book ID in there, so that helps you identify all of the rows in that, or tuples in that table, with using the book ID, the ISBN, and up will pop the authors of that book. So yeah, so the book author table is the idea, is the way to go. And we have 2 one-to-many relations or relationships instead of a many-to-many. Okay?
Professor,
Yes.
in that case, if we have a separate associative entity, as you said, and we're putting down author IDs, which format should we use for the field? Like we'd have numerical IDs, I'd imagine, but they would be separated by something. So should we better use characters or just plain numbers?
Yeah. So my suggestion, I think, is down here. So if you look at the database design, okay, that particular graphic there, right? So it does indicate that with the Dewey Decimal System, right, that you know, when you look at the spine of the book as it's on the shelf, right, on the spine of the book you will see the Dewey Decimal System check shelf 0005.75, and just going back up to the Dewey Decimal System here, it's in computer science and information and general works, so that's the 00 category, so it's in there, right? And database design, anything to do with databases, is in category 5.75, so that's grand. But there'll be many books in there, so we need to list them out alphabetically. So the approach taken in libraries is to take the first 4 characters of the author's surname, okay, which in this case is Hernandez. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms, but there could be other authors called Hernandez as well, who, but really, could there be? If you're searching for authors called with the code HERN, there could be other Hernandez, but they're not the ones who wrote that book, right? So we need some unique identifier, right? So what we could do, what you could do here, right, is for that author, use this and use HERN 00 for the first Hern. And if there's another Hernandez, HERN 01, and that way you have a unique ID for this author, right? So that becomes a unique ID in the author's file. So it becomes, in terms of an attribute definition, it would be a varchar, right? Not an integer, a varchar, and it would have 6 characters, a varchar bracket 6. So if you have that down as your author ID, it replicates how we're doing it in terms of this approach, right? Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So I think what you would see then on the check shelf 005.75, we can keep that approach because we were already labeled the books like this and there already exists. But in terms of actually locating them properly on the system, okay? In an ideal world, that book would be labeled HERN 01 if there's 2 Hernandez. It's highly unlikely, right? Or 00, right? But in terms of our search purposes, in terms of our ability to search the database, not only for this book, we need a greater degree of accuracy. Human beings, because it's a human being who will be checking the shelves, right? And as long as they look in 005.75, they're in the right place. and then they can look at the book and check for if there is two Hernandez there, right? They'll still be able to see the book title and the edition, and they can make the decisions then, right? Whereas in the library, we need to keep an accurate record of all authors of all books. So I think for the author ID, we should, you should, and I'm telling everybody to do this now, you should, I think, and I recommend you do it, an author ID should have first four letters of the surname, and then what they call a bit of salt or pepper, something to make it unique, is the two digital characters beginning with 00. There can't be 99 Hernandez, right? Well, there could be actually 99 Hernandez. So maybe we need to make it 3 or 4, just to be sure. So, in other words, you make a unique identifier that for every, you all come from countries, right? And like my own, you have very, very popular surnames. If you think of that, like, you know, what surnames are you most likely to meet, you know, in people? And especially in large countries, you know, they'll have a high incidence of surname similarity. And therefore, you absolutely do need something like the social insurance number to differentiate between them at a national level. So you need a big enough numeric field attached to Hern, attached to a 4-character thing to accommodate all possible. And you can err on the side of caution and say 3 will be enough. There can't be, you know, that many authors of that, you know, associated with this particular whatchamacallit, a Dewey Decimal number. Okay? Any other questions? Right, so let's move down. Just at a point, in your general education, right? Particularly as people who will become data analysts, right? I mean, it's not all about this course. It's not about the fact that you have an exam. It's that you chose this course because you want a career in informatics. And so, you know, understanding what the Dewey Decimal System isn't a half bad idea, because it gives you insights in how we can categorize and store data. Okay. And so the next, there's an error in spelling here. Okay. So we can see, what can we see? I put in a, let me see, in the system, author ID may be based on XXX dot no. You see that? Okay. Can you see that? Hello?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay. So online books in the catalog, right, are books that are online. And I just want to explain this, are linked via hypertext to the publisher or service provider using the ISBN, title, and authors. Okay, so does the library manage the borrowing of these online books? Okay, we say ebooks, let's say EPUB, PDF. Okay. Downloads and printing in EPUB or PDF are limited, and this is managed by the publisher or service provider. In other words, the library just provides that hyperlink. It has a contract with them, and you're out of luck if you can't actually print it off, and but you will be able to read it online. You know what I mean? But you can't download it unless an agreement has been entered into for that purpose. So that's outside the purview or the area for this system. But we need to have that in the library in any case. The ebook, the link will be a field in the ebook attribute. Okay. Right. And if we think of this, right, a book, okay, a book title will be the parent. You will have a child instances of ebook and book CD. Okay. Just think of that, right? Just think of that. Okay. Now, again, more on the Dewey Decimal System in terms of music, scores, and recordings are also available for borrowing. And we again use turn off your mic. One of the last people who spoke there have their mics switched on. These also use the Dewey Decimal Classification System under the category 780. Okay, so all music and all music recordings will be classified in the library in the area of the library marked 780. Okay. In addition to this, each composer is allocated a code, which is the first letter of the surname, and then a number, e.g. Mozart.81, and this permits the works by a single composer to be kept together regardless of whether other composers share the surname. Turn off your mic. Everybody check your mic settings and put in mute. Any of you interested in classical music or having been exposed to it in your youth will know that there was a couple of Bachs. There was Christian Bach and Johann Sebastian Bach, for example, and these are two separate composers, even though they were related in real life. And one is B04 and the other is B08. And the only exception is pop music scores. They're allocated 4 letters as books, e.g. Billie Eilish would be EILI. Okay, a music CD or MP3 file would be categorized. Categorized similarly under 780, with a pop music CD by Billie Eilish being catalogued as 781.63, and that's the code for popular music. EILI, to accommodate music genres and subgenres. The numbering scheme runs from 781.000 to 789. So in other words, what that's telling you, right, is that that field, that attribute has innate character, variable character, not integer, because there's a dot in. Well, it could be integer. No, it's not an integer. best to categorize it variable character, because we won't be doing any mathematical computations in it. It's only a way, it's only a unique ID to help us find and catalog all the different types of music out there. Okay? So, the book acquisition process, physical or online, is triggered by requests from academics in various departments. Each department Kazi Rakib Al Hazan, your mic was on, I muted it. And from the activity I've just heard, I wonder, are you paying any attention at all?
Sorry, Professor, I think my mic wasn't off, but if it was, then I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, this paragraph just indicates, again, some process that needs to be accommodated if you were doing a process model here, but its information in terms of data modeling is limited. All we know is that there would be a request logged on the system from a department for the acquisition of books by the librarian. How you manage that in data terms is reasonably straightforward, and I can leave you figure it out yourself. Okay. The next, it also indicates, right, that the need to move older volumes, okay, that haven't been borrowed, in order to free up space within the library into an off-campus location. Okay, so you need some way of and all you need to do is very simple, right? When you think about it, all you need is in the book field, right? In the book entity, to have an attribute called location. And if in location you have the Dewey Decimal number, well, that tells you where it is, okay? But also in location, if it's removed from the library and the Dewey Decimal categorization and is put in store, okay? Or maybe off campus, you need to indicate that. And when that's indicated, then the off-campus location records would be separate from this. So I'm leaving them out of the scope of this, right? All we need to know is the book is off-campus. Okay, so don't think beyond this particular paragraph. It says what it says. Book titles not in the library may be borrowed using the interlibrary loan process. Okay. Remember, we're still keeping the off-campus books on the library catalogue, except we're indicating they're stored off-campus. Okay, that's a different database. Book titles not in the library may be borrowed using the interlibrary loan process to help librarians using the system to ensure that the books that members want to borrow are available when members wish to borrow them. Also, the librarians must know how many copies each book are in the library or out loan at any time. So we have a range of book titles that are not in the catalogue, so we don't have them in our database, but we need to reference the fact that books have been borrowed using the interlibrary loan entity. Okay, so in this entity, we need a replica of the book. In other words, we need ISBN, author, ISBN, author, book title, edition, lending library. Okay, so we need, when you think about it, and I hope you're listening to me now because this is bloody important. So what I'm saying is, you create a separate entity for the interlibrary loan that is just one entity. You need to link the borrower to it, okay? The student or staff member who has this book out on loan. It's an interlibrary book. You could say interlibrary book, right? It's assumed that it's out on loan. Here we have the ISBN, here we have the title, and here we have the lending library. Okay? And the date and time of borrowing is captured by the university system. Okay? And that will be enough for this project. Now the rules, and all of this paragraph, students can borrow books for 21 days. All it means, right? It's referencing the type of attributes you need to capture about the borrowing details between student and staff and books. So in the borrowing details, you will have, much like the rental car examples we covered, you will have the date of borrowing, not necessarily the time, the date of borrowing, and the date of return. And remember this, the 21 days, right, is calculated. So all we need is the dates, and if a book is overdue, there will be, we will need an attribute called overdue, okay? But the system will take care of populating that attribute simply because the system has a date and time itself. It will scan down through, an application will scan down through the members, students and staff, the borrowing dates, and after 21 days, it'll mark them overdue, okay? And so all we need to do in that context is have the date of borrowing and an attribute called status, okay? And if the status is overdue, and that field should accommodate, the status field should accommodate overdue, lost, or stolen. For example, that's for example, right? Because we need to know what the status of the book is and why it is overdue. Okay, books in high demand have a 3-day limit. So certain books, high demand books, which is another attribute, okay, have a 3-day limit. But again, that's for the system to decide as to whether a 3-day book is overdue or not. You don't need to record that in the thing, in the database. Student members are allowed 5 books at a time. So we need to put that constraint in terms of the number of books borrowed. Members usually return books within 3 to 4 weeks. That's superfluous. Most members know that they have 1 week of grace, blah, 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 blah. About 5% of the members have to be sent reminders, and that's not going to be captured by the system, except unless you want to note that a reminder was sent. So again, that goes into the borrowing details, book reminder, okay? Faculty and other staff may borrow books for up to 3-month period, so that they have a different constraint. And again, that needs to be captured by the system, and they have a 2-week grace for returns. Renewals notices to staff is also by email. Okay, so you know, and again, the system needs to capture whether a renewal notice was sent or not, and what date. So books, and in book details, you might want a separate separate attribute called notices. Okay, to capture the fact that multiple notices would have been sent on different dates. Yeah, so that's important there. So we have now the status of a book, returned late, not returned, lost or destroyed. That's the status of a book, and we need to mark that. And if a book is which is due by a particular date, okay. Yeah, so that's another thing. And again, please note, and you need to write it down. So we know that a student can borrow books for 21 days. So on the day the book is taken out, the system must automatically calculate and populate a due date. Okay. So I think in this case, that due date needs to be in the system, needs to be an attribute in the system. So date borrowed and due date. And then the book status as overdue, if that date is exceeded. And also in status could be returned, lost, or destroyed, in which case, depending on the status, fines may need to be paid, or the replacement cost of the book obtained from the borrower. But those are processes. All we need to do is record the status of the book, right? Here's another area. The library does not lend some books, such as reference books, rare books, and maps. These must be read in the library. They're still stored in a normal way in the library, by the way. Thus, the system and the librarians must differentiate between books can be lent and those that cannot. Now, you need to do that. In addition, the librarians need to have access to a list of some books they need to acquire but cannot obtain commercially, such as rare or out-of-print books and books that were lost or destroyed that haven't been replaced. Such books may be accessed through interlibrary loans. So back up to interlibrary loans with this one. Thus, the system must capture information on certain books and articles that are requested by academics and students regularly, but held in other libraries, such as interlibrary loans. So what we want, the interlibrary loans table will have that information, right? So in summary, the proposed database system must be designed to keep track of the members' borrowing history and fines, etc., books and other articles such as CDs, book article status, location, and book acquisition with respect to on-campus limits. Librarians are also users of the system as they enter new acquisitions and administer the library catalogue. So that's the end of the system description. And now to unpack that, in terms of the data model due date, I've yet to receive confirmation from CULS as to whether I can extend it beyond the 24th of the 10th. I would hope to have such confirmation today. Oh, right. One final thing. As I said, right, I was just checking there for an email. I didn't get anything yet. I need to see something like this. Now, I saw something like this morning when one student shared with us his work thus far. And yes, you could see the workings. You could see, you know, the analysis of the text, the identification of entities, the identification of relationships, the connectivity and cardinality of relationships. In that, you know, it's one-to-many, recursive, one-to-one, mandatory, one-to-one, or one-to-M, mandatory, one-to-M, optional, and so on. And also, I might add, the identification for each entity of its attributes. Okay? And the fact that name and address at this point are composite attributes and need to be atomic: first name, second name, address, street name, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And for the second deliverable, it's an entity relationship model in third normal form with data definition columns. Entity attribute values must be atomic, as I indicated. The model, you should know the crow's foot notation as is, and also the data definitions, right? As indicated here, whether they're integers, the number of integers required, or the number of variable characters. And what's not shown here is the status, null or not null. Okay? Now, one thing I will say here, right? If all of the data attributes, right, are not null, okay, are not null, well, that can be taken as assumed and you don't have to put it in, but please put an assumption in there that, you know, each field has to have a value inserted. Right, it is coming up to 11 o'clock. I've shared pretty much as I can. I went through each part of the project. I've explained it, I've answered questions. If I don't have any more questions, we'll end this lecture session and look out for emails from me at the end of today indicating whether or which you've got an extension. If not, you need to crack on. Now, I will say this, right? In previous years, in a group of 60 students, I can say that I have had 10 excellent, almost perfect, unique answers. When I say about unique, is that there were 10 imperfect by 10 different students who did their own work and came up with, and they were presented in totally different ways. If I see models looking very, very similar, right? And if I don't see workings, what I mean by workings is part one in terms of the interpretation, the textual analysis, right? Corresponding to these, right? It's a sign to me that plagiarism has taken place. And I will report it to the to CULS. I will note it as a mark of concern, and it may result in students failing this module.
Professor, can I say something?
Yes?
I have only sent you the diagram, but I haven't sent anything else because I thought only diagram is enough.
No. You have been, since last night, given a copy of the project. If you have a diagram sent to me already, you either are a genius or else you need to go back and revisit it.
No, Professor, not about the project. I'm talking about the assignment that you have provided us.
What
Hello.
assignment? This is the assignment.
No, the first one, the diagram we have to send to you for the attendance.
Oh,
This is older.
that's older. We're not discussing that today.
Okay, Professor, thanks. I was scared that you were mentioning that.
I'm talking about this, right? If for example, a student decided, I don't have time to do this, and asked another student, could they look at his work or her work, and then copy that and sent it to me as his own in this practice assignment or practice thing for attendance purposes, well, I put it like this, right? If somebody didn't make an honest attempt at doing that assignment, then you've already kind of, failed to take advantage of an opportunity to learn. And it will come back at you. I don't mean you, Kazi. I mean, I'm speaking generally here, right? So what I'm saying is, right, in terms of this project, because analysis and design is an art more than a science, because it's interpretive, and because it's creative, even with 99 students, it is unlikely as me winning the Irish Lotto this weekend, okay, to have two projects that look similar. I will be expecting everybody to submit their own work. It will be very evident, even by eyeballing it, whether projects are similar or not.
I do understand that, but I also have the analysis of the assignment. Should I send them, or is it okay? Just I have sent the diagram.
Should you send which? Sorry, Kazi?
The assignment analysis I have, but I have only sent you the diagram. So as you are mentioning that I have lost an opportunity, or just to prove you that I have.
No. Look, that's past, right? All I want to see in my inbox, right, within the next week, okay, at the moment, within the next week, is a Word document and a separate PNG file. And in the Word document, the due date is, yes, it's the 24th at the moment for now. I'm waiting a response from the university, and I will resend the document. Sorry, I'm responding to, okay. So you need to send me two documents. One is a Word file, and the other is a PNG file. I just want to be clear on that, right? If you embed the PNG in the Word file, that is okay too. But in the Word file, what I want to see is your analysis. And I want to see what I've shown you a while ago. In other words, your entities, the relationships, the many-to-many being converted into one-to-manys, okay? And all of that. And I want to see the diagram presented preferably using Lucidchart. in the style that's mandated. I want to see those things, and it's clear from the project assignment that that's exactly what I want. Sorry, is that okay for everybody?
Yes, sir. For now, yeah. I just wanted to kindly ask you to resend the document that you were just updating.
Yeah,
You did some updates there and couldn't catch that.
I corrected some of my spelling errors and maybe added a sentence. Thanks.
Yeah, a lot actually.
Yeah, so I'll resend it immediately.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, who has a question? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Please, could you repeat again when is the final date for submission?
It at the moment is standing at the 24th of October.
And time?
Midnight.
Midnight. Okay. Thank you.
So back to you, Aliu. So when you're creating an entity, okay, the only way the rationale for an entity is that it contains unique data. I was thinking about this morning myself, actually, right? You know, a borrower, strictly speaking, right? We have the category of things called borrowers. We have two types of borrowers in the system. We have staff borrowers and student borrowers, right? So one way of modeling the system would be have a superclass of borrowers and two subclasses of students and staff. But is that necessary? Simply because if we think of the unique identifier for a borrower, it'll have a student number and a staff number as a unique identifier. And those are two different things. You know, if you look at your student number from the university, and you look at any staff number in the university, there'll be two totally different characters, or two totally different numbers, right? So in that case, having a borrower ID, okay, would mean a unique borrower ID that is not the student number or staff number. And so therefore, having a borrower entity isn't required. It's a mistake. So you operate from student borrower and staff borrower and use their staff and student IDs as a unique identifier. And that's the solution to that. Okay.
Thank you. That's great insight right there.
Okay, sir.
So I think I've helped you along the way. It is going to be time consuming, but it's not rocket science. You have learned the general rules, now apply them. It's going to take in time and effort. And Aliu, I'm very reassured that in the short period since I've given it to you, you have made remarkable progress. And I've seen that in other years as well with students. Say in a group of 60, 10 students in the class on the Friday would have handed, at least 5 of those would have handed me up the full solution. And that's in 5 hours work, because I know they started it maybe the day before. And some of those students would get between 90 and 95%. Okay, so this is doable. Do not be swamped by it. Okay, it looks long, but in actual fact, when you read it, there's a lot of detail in it and there's a lot of facts in it, which makes it easier to do. So, and you know, I'd say if there's 9 entities in it, maybe that's a lot. I know there might be, I haven't done the solution to it myself yet. I will have to do it before I correct you guys. But nevertheless, there is help out there on the internet. There are the borrowing examples from libraries, but I've written this one to be unique. And if I see any of the other ones in there, you can get ideas from them, right? As to what attributes you might have, what relationships might be. But your models will be unique to this system and will be unique from each other. Okay, that's the end of a very busy week for us all. I've taught in this study block a whole semester of database design, which is for you guys, which is a remarkable amount of information to have to take in a very short period of time. And I commend you all on that for being engaged every day. Attendance was excellent. Assuming, of course, that you were listening to me and doing the and doing your revision, and I know that some of you have. As I said to one student yesterday, if you have a question, you may email me on the email I've been using. I will try to respond. I'm very, very busy again next week. This time doing research and and research meetings. So yeah, I will try to respond, and if necessary, meet you to answer your questions. But let's and if the question is general, what I do with other students, I will send out a response to everybody. So if somebody's having a particular problem, more than likely everybody in the class has the same problem as well. So there, it's been a pleasure meeting you all. It's a pity it wasn't in person and in class, but that's life in the land of COVID, where unfortunately in my country, we have the highest rate of vaccination in Europe. It's over 90%. But we're finding at the moment that the 10% of social media addicts who haven't been vaccinated are causing a spike in our infections. So much so that my 8-year-old grandson now is being tested, and more than likely he's been exposed to it because his two pals who he spent some time with last Saturday have it and have been tested positive. And that's not reassuring. And so, it means that large gatherings like a class of this size in a normal environment isn't possible. So I think the university are very wise to be doing what they're doing. It's not ideal. I'd have much preferred to be in Prague to be with you, but it is what it is. So thank you very much for attending during the week. I hope I'll see you again in a different context sometime in Prague, in Kuls. And so best of luck with the project. And thank you very much.
Excuse me, Professor. I'm sorry to asking this late, but would it be possible for you to give us a video conference like this for doubt anytime before the submission date?
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, but I missed out the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking would it be possible for you to give us have a video conference like this before the submission date? Like if someone has a doubt or something, like a consultation.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I will check my emails next Tuesday, and if during that time people have identified issues, I will almost certainly on the Wednesday or Thursday, or even on I'm quite busy on Tuesday. On the Wednesday or Thursday of next week, I will send out a meet request to the group, and if people want to attend, that's fine, and I will answer the questions I get on email in that session. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks you.
So
thanks so much.
Best of luck to you all. I know that many of you will be fine. I know that others will struggle, but that's the way life is. This is a totally different new area. You've learned a totally different new language. You need to learn it if you're going to be informatics professionals in this world, knowing how data hangs together and so on. So thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Goodbye, thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Have a
sir.
great
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you,
Professor.
Professor. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Professor.
Sorry.